Okay, good evening. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. It's a special board meeting for Tuesday, July 14th, 2026 for the Toledo Public Schools Board of Education. Treasurer, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mrs. Barnes?
Present.
Mrs. Gherkin?
Here.
Mr. Vasquez? Here. Mr. Parker? Here. And Mrs. Varwick?
Here. And then Dr. Durant, the mission and vision, please.
Yes, TPS mission to provide innovative educational opportunities that ensure each student is prepared for their future. Our vision is to empower each and every student to lead and live a purpose-driven life. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to proceed right to section 2, which is potential levy options and consider related board action. First, I'd like to thank the Finance Committee. I know that was a pretty lengthy conversation that you had around this topic, and I appreciate the fact that you were able to bring forth a couple resolutions so we can consider that and have discussion this evening. So I do applaud your efforts. I know that can be a bit tedious, and especially after the year we've already had to now consider a possible levy. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lockwood at this time, so maybe you can explain to us a little bit more about your conversations in finance, and then also to discuss the levy options and the process.
Will it just stay on if I... Sorry. So thank you for that, Ms. Varwick. Like you mentioned, the Finance Committee had a pretty lengthy discussion about kind of where we were as a district and the options we have moving forward at this point. So one of the things I do want to make clear to the board and to the public, I'm not here to do any type of blame game. There isn't. We want to move forward for the kids. This isn't. I want to look at history for a little bit, but I put no blame on where the history ended up. We ended the year at 9.9 million, and that would be the after encumbrance figure. It is slightly higher than where the plan came out. You were in the $7 million range with the Ohio Department of Education plan. What I do want to make note of is that if you focus on that 9.9 for a second, one payroll here, and there's 26 pays in a year in this district, is worth 8.7 million approximately. So at 9.9 million, if any catastrophe happens, you know, a roof comes off, a bunch of buses happen to be destroyed, and obviously we have insurance, but to get things rolling, we may have to initiate with some cash that we wouldn't have, and then it could hurt the chances with obviously being able to meet payroll, which is, to me, is a no-go as a treasurer. The district still deficit spent in fiscal year 26 by about $24 million. Keep in mind, we did have that unprecedented state budget cut from obviously Columbus, and so that plays a role into that the districts across Northwest Ohio also saw. Just Toledo, because of its size, it was magnified. Transformation 2.0, obviously some tough discussion was made before I got to the district. The reality of the plan is that most of the reductions really won't take place until next year. There was some realized reductions this year, but the majority of them will take place next fiscal year, the current one we're going into, and the one preceding that. We recently went through a bond refunding, and one of the things that we had to do was we had to get rated by the rating agencies to make that happen. And a piece to that, I think, speaks very highly about district finances. They really dig into it, and it's an outside agency that looks at district finances. And I just wanted to share a couple key items from the Moody's report because I think it speaks well to why we need a levy. We were rated by Moody's, and how I reconcile it with the crowd is think of Moody's as like the TransUnion or Equifax in the credit world that you may be used to. You know, so we're shooting for a good credit rating. That's the point of this. Unfortunately, Toledo fell 3 spots on the Moody's rating scale. We were an A1 and we fell to a BAA1. Why I bring that up, I was talking to some of the staff members in my office, and it's a little frustrating because that is the lowest I've ever been in a school district. That B rate is the lowest I've ever seen in my career of roughly 26 years in school finance. I want to just briefly mention what Moody said were some of our strengths and our challenges. One of the strengths is we have a history of solid voter support for operating levies. You've done a real good job at making sure things get passed. You have moderate long-term liabilities and moderate debt, which moving forward, which is good. Some of the challenges they said were multiple years of operating deficits that's really eaten into the liquidity of the district and resulting in a very poor negative fund balance in their term for fiscal year 26. When you look at the deficit spending, you've deficit spent for 4 years in a row now to a tune over $100 million. So again, no blame, but we got to fix the problem moving forward. The other piece that they said, which I found to be interesting, was that they felt that the Transformation 2.0 plan was ambitious, and I think it was, but they felt that we weren't going to be able to reach that goal, and so I still think we'll be able to reach the goal, but when we get re-evaluated on this rating, I think that will be something we'll have to stress with them. They do like to see an available fund balance above 10%. For us, that would typically mean I think they quoted they love to see about $33 million in carryover reserves, and we're at roughly 9. They also had some concerns about enrollment declining, and they'd like to see us make sure that we can stop that. All right, so when it comes to other districts' general fund balance, we talked about this in the finance committee, and Toledo is at roughly 9.9 million. When I look at my comparables across the state, Cleveland was at 83 million, Columbus was at 229 million, Cincinnati was at 39, Akron was at 81 million, Dayton was at 61 million, and Canton had $26 million. So we are a little behind our peers when you look at it in terms of that. One of the things that you may ask is, kind of what led to this, and from my best guess, again, I wasn't here, but we all went through this, and all of us, districts across the state of Ohio, we received a lot of ESSER funding. And a portion of that was always to add some form of program, whether it was school nurses, additional cleaning opportunities in buildings and facilities. And so a lot of us fell into that trap of adding program, but then maybe not catching it when the money dried up. And so the general fund had to then eat expenditures. I think the district saw this between 24 and 25. We had $22 million more in salaries in that period. And we saw over a $24 million increase in benefits. A piece of that benefit was that Toledo Public had to inject $10 million from the general fund into the healthcare fund to stabilize it. So again, probably historically, looking again across the state, my experience as a treasurer, not unusual. Springfield, where obviously I came from, we just saw a 59% increase in healthcare costs. So imagine what that does. It's well over your 10. It's well over your 10 million as a percentage. So I feel you did probably pretty good with just the 10 million. In 26, as we speak to closing that out, salaries did rise again, $156,000, and benefits, the total cost increased $2.2 million. When we look at this from a forecast perspective, Transformation 2.0 plan, as it gets implemented, we will start to see these reductions heavy in the upcoming school year and then the next school year. Hoping that there maybe be some additional changes. We talked about the potential for the Senate and the House to collaborate with bringing that sports piece back that we fought so hard for in terms of trying to consolidate some of our athletic programs, and I think that may come to reality from the state. There are some changes, obviously, that affect Ohio public funding, and I want to briefly speak about those in the sense of what we know will happen, and then what we think might happen, because that's obviously the piece of the forecast, the crystal ball we think we have at the moment. So what we know will happen is we have a governor's race coming up. Two sides to that, and I think we have a very moderate governor now, and I think we're going to go to potential very extreme Republican governor who could dismantle it, and I think we could have a very pro-Democratic governor if Ms. Acton get elected. So I think that needs to be kept in the back of our heads that come November and come January, there is the potential for a good or bad change. Property tax law changes. There are really 4 that potentially could affect Toledo Public Schools or are currently affecting Toledo Public Schools that were recently enacted in the last year. House Bill 186, it caps property tax collections at inflationary measures. Previously, the county auditor and the state Ohio Department of Taxation would come up with a term or would come up with a value, and sometimes it would be massive. I mean, there were counties across the state that could see 20-40% increases. I think the average for Toledo Public Schools, I think, was 24 in the last cycle, but some of the suburbs were seeing much greater than that. House Bill 335 caps inside millage growth. So previously we used to get, that was one of the few areas in public ed that we were allowed to see any type of income growth, and now they're going to cap that at inflation. So again, Toledo receives 3.6 mils, and now it will be capped at inflation. House Bill 309, probably will not happen in Lucas County, hopefully, but it allows the county budget commissions and local officials to reduce taxes when collected exceed what the identified need is. I don't see our county auditor doing that, but again, as people change in politics, there is that potential because it is on the books now. House Bill 124 gives county auditors greater authority over valuations. So previously, they would send their recommendation down to Columbus, and Columbus would kind of yay or nay it and send it back with a recommendation of where they thought the valuation should be. Now, from reading this bill, I assume that more power will be in the local seat. And of course, that is elected position, and when it gets elected, people, when you want to do what's best for taxpayers, you're not going to make them pay more. See, another thing that we do know is happening is we will have a new biennium budget here at the after this school year. So we need to keep in mind, I as treasurer don't see any amounts of massive growth. I'm hoping for at least it to be stagnant and not detrimental, but I do think that if there's a detrimental piece, it would be where enrollment lies. So again, unfortunately for us though, we probably won't have good enrollment numbers within the district until September, and that will be a challenge. The last one on here is we're still seeing unfunded mandates come out of the state. Two that we mentioned recently were Senate Bill 19, that's an academic intervention service, and that basically means increased tutoring for poor and urban districts, unfortunately, will probably be hit the hardest from this legislation. Senate Bill 276 is the school site compact, and it just adds additional coursework and materials to teach what they refer to as a success framework to high school students. Again, no money to do any of these projects, but they want it done. Now the potential impacts. New funding model. We are in year 6 of the Fair School Funding Plan. It is the longest funding model of my career. I think this was my 8th funding model in roughly 26 years. It seems like about every 3 to 4 years we get a new funding model. And so I am just, the law of averages says that there will be a new funding model at some point. A further enrollment decline. We just talked about that, but again, we need to pay attention. Will Transformation 2.0 plan have a further effect on enrollment than what we've been seeing prior to that? Also, there are further property tax challenges. One of the more recent things in the last year or so, we've seen obviously in the state of Ohio, attempts to get on the ballot to totally remove property taxes from the people of Ohio. Obviously, there's a political climate for that right now, and then you saw obviously all the legislation I just talked about where the state was enacting changes to that. I think this brings us now to, this is a comfortable point of moving to the options that you have in front of you. The state made some changes in the biennium budget and just following it when it came to what schools can do with how they raise funds. And really, school districts in the state of Ohio are down to 2 options at this point. You can do your traditional property tax that's expressed in a millage value, or you can do a school district income tax. And the school district income tax can be a traditional sense, which taxes all members of your community, regardless of how the income's earned, or you can do an earned income tax, which that takes out retirees and those receiving governmental benefits and things like that. How we kind of arrived at this property tax, I think everyone for the most part is familiar. It's expressed in a millage value. It goes against the valuation of the value that the auditor puts on your house. I think the law was passed in 1976. We're not allowed to receive growth in property tax revenue. So when a levy is passed at a property tax level, it is fixed at that amount for perpetuity. Or if you're doing continuing, it's fixed at that amount for perpetuity. But if it's renewable, it still continues at that amount that is initially passed at. Talk about property tax again. Toledo's had great success over the years with levies when it comes to property taxes. We're also at a period where we have no renewal levies going forward. From November of 2027 till November of 2029, the district will see a pattern where it has to put a renewal levy on the ballot pretty much at each election cycle within that time frame. On an income tax levy, like I said, you have earned or traditional. The one thing that is beneficial or different from a property tax levy is that currently the state of Ohio allows that income tax to grow. So as the residents of your community, and only as the residents, I want to make that very clear, if you work in the city of Toledo but do not live in the city of Toledo, you would not have to pay that tax. It is only for those that live in the city confines. Currently, going back to what I said though about the growth, you do have the ability to watch that property tax grow as income grows. From speaking to other districts across the state that have it, usually that growth is pretty handsome, and so what you pass initially does allow you to eventually get more funds. There is obviously a small fear in my own mind that eventually the state will catch on to that and it will fix it to a point where you don't recognize the growth. The earned income, again, going back to that earned income piece, it does allow you to give seniors a reprieve. I think you hear that a lot when you look at property tax legislation, that if they're on a fixed income, it becomes difficult to take those increases that come with property tax levies. The earned income wipes that away a little bit for seniors because unless they are currently still working, it does not tax retirement benefits. So with that, I think I'd open up the board, open up to any questions about, moving forward with either of the resolutions for either a property tax or an income tax.
Thank you. And before we open it up to the board, could you explain the process here? So we do have two resolutions, and then, just if you could explain, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I forgot I was supposed to. So we have two resolutions, where the process to put a levy on the ballot is twofold. So you have a resolution of necessity, which is what the board may act on this evening. The resolution of necessity technically doesn't, there's two of them, one for either property or income. The resolution of necessity basically says that we will send this resolution to the county auditor if it is property tax, and if it is an income, we'll send it to the Ohio Department of Taxation, the Ohio Tax Commissioner, and they will certify the amount of what we put in. So if we put 6.9 mils, the county auditor will send us back the value of what 6.9 mils will generate, and if we put a 1% income tax, the Ohio Tax Commissioner will send that value back to us, and they have per ORC they have 10 days to do that, and I think that is work days. I don't think it's calendar. And then at the next board meeting, which would be at the end of July, the board will have to pass a resolution to proceed, and that allows me to then take the motion and file it at the Board of Elections. It will contain some ballot language in the resolution, and then that will put us on the ballot. That has to be done by August 5th of 26.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll open it up for discussion at this time. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Lockwood or any discussion that you need to have before we move into the resolution section?
I have questions.
Sure, please.
You mentioned that the deficit spending for the last 3 years, did you say 3 or 4, 23, 24, 25, 26? In 26 it's 24 million, but then you quickly did the math and said it added up to 100 million. Can you restate that and break it down for me?
Yes. All right, so the deficit spending number is over 100 million, and I'm adding up 4 years in a row, is well over it. In 23, you deficit spent 21.4 million. In 24, you deficit spent 32.8 million. In 25, you spent 48.2 million, and then in year 26, you deficit spent 24 million.
So the math on that is, oh my God, it was over 100 million, so over 100 million, okay. Okay. I see that, and I don't know if I'm asked questions about the resolution, or you're going to, just anything I have questions about right now, anything, okay.
Whatever you'd like.
All right, so in the resolution for the necessity of a property tax, the amount is 6.9 million. Can you talk about where that number came from and what it might generate and what it might solve? And then I will have another question.
So the 6.9 was a little bit arbitrary to me coming here. There was a survey that was pushed out to residents in April. And I think that survey alluded to an appetite to the community of roughly 4 to 6.9 mils. And so from a fiscal standpoint, as treasurer, I would recommend going for the highest based on how that deficit spending has worked out. I think one of the tough parts is, as we saw at least in the May elections, the higher the value, the less chance of success it had. And so I do cringe slightly going above that 7 figure when you start to put something on the ballot. So that's my answer to that piece. The other piece was what it would roughly generate, and so you'd be looking at about $22.8 million in revenue generation with that. And again, that's my rough calculation. We would want to wait till the auditor did certify it before we put official figures out there. But I think 22.8 is a good estimate.
And how long will that 22.8 keep us out of deficit spending again?
So I think that it would take us at least to 2030. 2030 be a little iffy, but again, if I had the crystal ball in front of you, I probably would go be a stock exchange truthsayer in New York to just say that. A lot of variables, obviously, as we move into that I kind of covered. 4 or 5 years down the road is always a tough call, and I think when you one of the things that I stress is that pull 90% of the 5-year forecast that gets submitted and look at that ending value in that last year. I bet the majority of them are negative. And partially it's a safety mechanism for all of us.
You have a forecast right now that projects deficit spending in 2029?
So right now I haven't created my own forecast yet. I'm still working off what was provided to me. The next one is due at the end of August. The one that was in front of me was the previous one that I think that was submitted to the Ohio Department of Education. It showcased a $17 million deficit in year 29 with both potential levies and the income it generate. In 29, it looks like the property would give us roughly, based on that 17 million deficit spending, would give us roughly 5 million in carryover and the income tax in 29 would give us roughly 16 million in carryover, which to me that also alludes that 30 would be a bit of a challenge.
I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. How far do we actually get with this 6.9 or that 22.8? And sometimes I have to hear it a couple different ways before it sinks in.
Again, I think a challenge, I think that the district would need to continue to reevaluate programs and processes to continue to maintain financial stability.
Any other questions, discussion? Anything from finance folks?
Yeah, I think all of Ms. Durkin's questions are good questions. And I think there's some realities that we have to face based on our discussion. One is we go for the property tax. We're still going to have to make adjustments. What we end up with is not a good place to be, and so we will continue to have to make adjustments. Neither one of these options, now the earned income would take us a little bit further, but neither one of the options are standalone solutions as far as I'm concerned. Okay, we're gonna have to do some heavy lifting if we do one or the other. In our discussion, I think that the variables were, number one, how, and that's why Ms. Gherkin's questions are good questions. One of the things that we talked about is how far is a levy, either option, going to carry us. The second thing that we're considering is then, depending on the answer to that question, is what else do we have to do? In either case, we're going to have to make some changes to our expenses. The other thing is, the only other ways is other revenue that we have, which is enrollment. And with the changes that we recently made, I don't think it's going to be tough. But we're going to have to find a way to increase our enrollment. And I think the other one is in our workforce dollars. And again, that's not a sure bet. So everything that we're talking about is not a sure bet. And I think the other part of the conversation, Madam President, that I want you to understand is that when Bishop Parker, myself, Dr. Durant, and Mr. Lockwood talked, as well as others that were at the meeting, was that having a crystal ball. And a crystal ball in a couple of places. Number one, we don't know who's going to be governor. And even if they are governor, whoever it is governor, we don't know what they're going to do. We don't know what the biennium budget's going to produce. But I think without a crystal ball, we know we're not going to get more money from the state. Okay. And hope that we're not going to lose any. Okay. And that's a hope. That's not something we know. And that's the problem with forecasting that far into the future, is it really involves a lot of unknowns. Now the flip side of that is when you discuss property tax and you discuss your options of going property tax or earned income, the things that we discussed was property tax puts us in a better financial situation if it passes. Earned income doesn't get us to where I want to be. Okay, we're going to have to make some changes, and I hope that we can do some additional things, because I never want to think of being stagnant and not growing. The other unknown to us is, what is the appetite of the voters? Okay, we just don't know. Another thing with crystal ball. It was brought up, and there's evidence that earned income tax that we put on before failed. Okay. Property taxes, as of our recent history, have passed. Now, is one more acceptable than the other? Again, I don't have a crystal ball. And I think that that's what we discussed is that, how do we know? Now, we do have, for the property tax, a poll that was taken. However, I want to mention that poll was taken before we made any changes. So, it's like, again, the unknown. Now, to be honest with you, the conversation I had with pollster, he said he didn't think it was going to be significant. I don't know. I don't know if I agree. I don't have anything to disagree with that. I mean, he's the expert. I'm not at polling. So what happened in finance was, to be honest with you, we had a lot of discussion about which option we should go. And I think those are the questions that are in front of us. What do we think we're going to be able to pass as a levy? Okay. Knowing we're going to make changes in any case, but facing one more than the other probably, because and then the other thing is, and as Mr. Lockwood pointed out, is that if the community income grows, we have the chance of growing, and that's pretty attractive too. I have to admit these things are attractive in the sense of being able to put our finances on a solid foundation. So, often we brought up, I don't have a crystal ball. And I think what Mr. Lockwood was saying was he doesn't have a crystal ball either. We look around what happens around us. But I think those are the questions. I want to go back to something that he said about Moody's. And I've been in a couple of those bond refinancings. The other thing that they consider is the environment in the state for school funding. And as long as they know that property taxes, and they're threatening to have property taxes. So it's not just what we do, and it's not just our carryover. They look at that, don't get me wrong, they focus in on that. But they also look at what's going on around us, and what are your chances of doing this? What are the chances? They're trying to struggle with the same questions that we're struggling with. What are the chances that the state's going to take away more money? What are the chances of the state diverting money someplace else? So these bonding agencies do the same thing. They also look at people's chances of passing levies, and so they do their homework. So I don't take what Mr. Lockwood said to be all on us. I mean, it's a whole factor of things. But I think, Madam President, that's kind of where we're at. It's like, got some tough questions without knowing exactly what the information is.
Ms. Barnes?
So, of course, mine is not more questions, but more statements to the questions. The decreased enrollment is one of the factors across Ohio because of vouchers give way to private and charter schools. We know that. They spend $1.6 billion. We all know that. I think what's vital too, as we talk about levies, as we talk about the future, is what is our messaging to the community. I know I have taken it upon myself to be a bigger champion in the community and more verbal about the changes because we know misinformation is rapid right now. And that would kind of concern me about choices that we have. A new choice, people don't like change. And that's the thing too. And when even now trying to explain what the earned income tax levy is to certain folks, all they hear is you're taking money out my check. And even it's like, well, no, it's a percentage, it's this and this dollar, and you're taking money out my check. Something that I worked for. I probably believe in TPS, but now you're taking money from me. Why not talk to the billionaires or whatever? So I think messaging is going to be really tough around that because it's a new concept, and everybody right now, if you look around, the school districts are doing similar journeys to that. And also with the enrollment piece, and I talk about this all the time, where I left the district as well and came back because I knew it was a better option. We have to figure out a way to show how many we are who are TPS proud. One thing that I saw in my neighborhood was the graduation little yard signs. And I see it with kindergarten yard signs, or I think it's Head Start kindergarten. But between there and that, we don't say nothing about whose house is proud of TPS. And so even that little piece of saying we're more visible in the community, we're more visible in the district than the people who don't believe in funding public education. And so I think it's a vital time as we look at our options to think about messaging behind both, but also the engagement behind both and what we are willing to do. And I'm saying as a board as well, because we know Dr. Durant is doing the walking and talking, and I can't keep up with his calendar, but we have to as well become the champion in the community talking about this beyond just the regular scheduled events, because it's going to be a lot of information to folks directly. It's going to be a lot of reassurance. I myself literally had to discuss TPS at my doctor visit today because a parent, she was a wonderful new doctor, but she was concerned. And I was like, oh, no, this is the truth. And afterwards, it was like, oh, I didn't know that. She's mad that you left, though, also. But that's a different thing. But we have to start having those conversations because people do not really know what's really going on in education. They don't know that what we know from the federal level. They don't know about the state. They don't know about any of these bills that you mentioned, Ryan, because in their daily life, they have to survive. So we have to figure out a way to engage them accordingly on each and every learning accessible level. And that's beyond Facebook. We got to get out of that mode. And another thing where I am leaning to, I, as a single mother, would have a very hard time trying to explain to another single mother how this is going to benefit their child when I'm taking money from their food, from their mouths. I'm just being honest. I had a conversation again today, and I tried to break it down in my boardship, but the mother in me was like, well, what are you going to do next time? Is it going to be an increase? Is it going to be an increase? And then she was like, oh, so you're about to be like Netflix. And that's the potential that we will be doing, not just us, the school districts as well. We will start with a price and it will help, and then we'll figure out the state is going to screw us more and we'll have to do it again. And I don't want to be Netflix to our community.
Thank you, Madam President. I know Mrs. Gerken has some more questions, but I really want to kind of piggyback on Mrs. Barnes, what she was saying about really educating our community. And I think that that has been a catch-22 because when misinformation gets out, people embrace the misinformation so that when the truth is presented, it's literally resisted and rejected. And so just even now, there's a social media debate on who's the best alumni and who has the best weekend. And so you're literally fighting over what school has the best weekend alumni, but we're trying to fight to keep schools open and keep our staff. And so this misprioritizing what is necessary, I really believe that, as Ms. Barnes stated, we have to be able to educate our community to understand how serious this is. And showing up on a weekend means nothing if you don't show up at the polls to make the decisions that are necessary to keep public education the way that it is. I think it's one of the things for me as a board member is the struggle to really explain it to where it does not go over our community members' heads, but to put it in simplistic nature where they can understand the urgency of what's going on as it relates to public education as well. In finance, when I was hearing some of the numbers and the deficits and things of such, how do we share this information to the point where they understand the urgency, but it doesn't sound like, for lack of a better word, the teacher from Charlie Brown. And so I think that that's very important. And then also really the earned income tax. I too believe that it's hard when there's a single mother or a single family that's struggling every day just to survive with this economy, and then pulling from that aspect. As Mr. Vasquez said, neither of these options are the best options. You know, this is very difficult, but we have to do something as a district, and we have to do something now because we talk about the crystal ball. I think my crystal ball just is broken. I don't have it now, but we don't know in the future what this looks like, and so we have to operate now in the present with the information that we have.
Ms. Gerken, you had additional questions?
Yes, on the earned income tax resolution, I don't see it is a percentage, it is 1%, is that right? Because I don't see it in the resolution, but maybe I'm just missing it. That's what we're asking for.
Yes, I agree that they made the correlation from the tax table that was from the Ohio Department of Taxation that 1% equaled that $33,000 or $33 million.
So in the resolution, it tells us it'll raise 33 million, and then that sort of just, going backwards, says 1%, or do we say 1% and then they say it raises 33 million? I don't see anything about amounts in here.
I agree with you. I do not see the 1% in the resolution, and I'm just operating on what an attorney told us.
Right, so, but what was discussed in Finance Committee and in some of our other conversations with you was 1%, and that it would generate how much?
1% would generate $33,413,000.
33.3 million. I'm sorry, yes, whatever you just said.
Sorry, 33 million.
33 million, not 34, but that's not in the resolution, so I don't know, if that's something that we need to think about, but, then I guess my next question is, about the gift of time. You've talked about, not even having a chance to do your own forecast, trying to, put together all the pieces. I think you started with saying we're on life support, and I don't know if we're giving ourselves, one more oxygen tank, or we're actually stabilizing with either of these options. And I think for sure, at 6.9 mil, that we're just maybe giving us up an oxygen tank, but we're not taking the life support off. If our certification of necessity is voted for tonight at the 6.9 mil, then when we finally vote for it to go to the Board of Elections, it has to be the 6.9 mil. There's no changing that, right?
That is correct. Once the auditor, we send the auditor for a figure that we want certified. Once they certify it, that's the figure.
And then what about, I'm going to go just back, I'm going to make a quick point about the gift of time and what happens if we certify both of these as necessity, and then we have 2 weeks to further, vet and understand and explain, or, even if we kind of know where we're going to land in 2 weeks, the idea that both options remain on the table, what would that look like?
So yes, both could technically remain on the table. Obviously, in the essence of time and something that I value, obviously, as a treasurer, is once a motion is passed, hopefully this evening, and then moving forward with an attorney, and then moving to the next step, that resolution to proceed. I always like to have everything re-cleared by an attorney just to make sure that the filing goes correctly. Speaking of the essence of time, obviously, because of how the transition has worked between Mr. Steckschulte and myself, I've come in at a very tough time in terms of putting new issuances on the ballot. And so I feel very comfortable from my previous experience putting a levy on the ballot, because I feel like in my previous district we did that constantly. So please trust that I'm familiar with the process and I'm not scared to move forward with that. Obviously, the state has made some changes to how our forecasting process works. Toledo Public uses a program called 5CAS basically, and we didn't use that at Springfield, but I did go through my first training yesterday. Unfortunately, it was only 30 minutes. I have another training tomorrow for another 30 minutes. So I am plugging away. I want you to feel comfortable that I am plugging away, and I will use Mr. Steckschulte for some guidance on the August forecast, but I will at least have a solid handle in it.
My question is, you said you're going to consult or work with lawyers. Is there a reason, and please, fellow board colleagues, help me out. Is there a reason why we're not using our legal consultant that we already have at the table?
So I do not want to speak for Mrs. Natashak or Marshall Mulhorn, but typically in public education, only a few attorney firms across the state do language for levies, and to my knowledge, Marshall Mulhorn does not do those.
Madam President,
I just wanted to make sure we wasn't double paying people.
I'd like to hear what the superintendent's recommendation is.
So in having conversations with TAF consultants who we've used on the last several levies, who've taken over for Mr. Fisher along with TRED, they represent a lot of the urban districts as well as those who are running for political office here within the city of Toledo. That's Galen and Jan, who had made it very point in essence of sticking to our original plan. So in my recommendation, the 6.9 mil for the property tax, one of the things that she stated was at the end of the day, you guys have a perfect record of what you've done, and she has no other clients that have done that. And so she feels like there is one, volume to speak there, but two, she speaks in essence of when you talk about the income tax, particularly in education, many of them had failed levies. They can't pass property levies, and so they resorted to new ideas. And TPS used to be that back in 2010, and we said, well, let's try, see if they can pass an income, and it failed worse than the property tax. I believe Mr. Overman has said it around 38%, which was far less than the property tax support within it. Mrs. Barnes speaks volume about the community within itself when it comes to seeing that deduction on a weekly to biweekly basis. But at the same time, the consultant said you need to recognize your market. When you're trying to align yourself to a suburban market, knowing that the suburbans have a higher home ownership than you do, you're aligning yourself to the wrong ideology and such forth. And so she was speaking on that, as well as one of the things that she said we're down to less than now around 80 days. So you're going to spend most of your time trying to educate your people on income tax opposed to your agenda, and before you know it, you get no vote just for the fact of the confusion. And so stick to what you guys are doing, and they're more than happy to continue to support us either way. But this is her recommendation, along with her partner, in support of those things. When you do talk about, in essence, of the tax within itself, we do end with a cash balance in 2030 into the tune of around 33 million within it. That does not factor other items that within that forecast under Mr. Schulte around dollars that we were compounding for career tech, food service, and at the same time, some of the things that we were doing differently in transportation. But at the end of the day, those are the things that Mr. Vasquez speaks to, because understand you're talking 5 years removed. These are action items that happen today to be able to offset that then. So the reality of this is we've always, as Mr. Lockwood has stated, most districts will show you a negative deficit spending in year 5. And it's not uncommon for our district or any other district because there's too many things that you can't predict in that variability. But within that, you're conscious of it and making changes on the front end. And those are the things that we've already started in essence. But at the same time, we know what our cash balance is going to be. And so through this support of this levy should take us beyond 2030 within itself in a positive cash balance.
Any other questions, comments? Yeah.
I have a question. I understood the part about because of the difficulty of forecasting, you usually do have deficit spending at the end of year 5, but we're talking about in the last 3 years, these are actual end-of-year deficit spendings, right? These weren't just pulled off and then made up for. I mean, we deficit spent in 23, 24, 25, and 26.
Yes, to add to that, understand that there was an ESSER cliff. So why most urban districts are in that situation, we received $170 million from the federal government. It was either use it or lose it. Most districts, just as Mr. Lockwood said in Springfield, things that they added with those ESSER funds, they ended up having to let go. And those are the deficits that we end up having to let go. So when you look at Columbus and Cleveland and all these, and you're seeing these outstanding numbers, it's because they used their ESSER funds to provide the support systems within these schools because we needed them. Now, when you look at 23, 24, and 25, we're coming out of ESSER and that cliff, which is why our goal was to go on in 24 to see if we could offset some of those and salvage some of those positions. What we did not anticipate was a biennium that would hit us for $24 million that compounded to say, well, not only do we have to let you go because of the ESSER cliff, but we now have this compounding of the biennium budget within it that we have to address just as well in 2 years. And that's what speaks to that. So some of those things, I think most communities don't recognize that there were ESSER dollars, and particularly in TPS, $170 million that we use to support, in essence, of many of these things in our classrooms, whether it's social workers or whatever else that is, in essence, of things that we were seeing as mental health, behavioral health concerns that were happening within the schools alarmingly within a period of time.
When did the ESSER funding stop, and when did we kind of finish spending that?
Mr. Lockwood, you have the exact date of each one, because remember, we had different pots of ESSER funds within that.
I think ESSER 3 was the last pot of funds, and I'm assuming TPS received those as well. To my knowledge, I think that ended in fiscal year 22.
Any other questions or comments?
I guess my comments are that even with the levy, we're going to have to dig in. We really got to dig in. But at the same time, I think we really have to have a vision. Okay, and I think it's complicated, and the reason it's complicated because a lot of people like to make it simple is that if you lose 300 kids, students, then you lose that amount of money and you can account for that. But you can't if it's 5 first graders at one school and 10 third graders at another school and so on and so forth. It just doesn't work that way. A lot of people want to see it go 1 for 1, 1 for 1, 1 for 1. It doesn't work that way. You still have to educate the other kids that are left in those classrooms and in those schools. I think the other thing that people don't account for is that it falls on urban schools often to do the special needs and to provide additional services that other districts don't provide. This is where it becomes really complicated and it becomes hard to understand. And so Bishop Parker and Ms. Barnes, I agree with you about the messaging, and that's how we got to deal with that messaging. You know what I mean? Because it does get complicated, and it's hard for people to understand. Why isn't it 1 for 1? You lose these teachers, so then you don't. I mean, you lose these number of students. You can lay off, a teacher here or there. It just doesn't work that way. So there's going to be. I guess my point is going to be the naysayers, and we have to be louder than the naysayers. What has happened, and everybody here and all my colleagues, what has happened is that because of the redirecting of tax money, and remember, it's tax money. It's tax money where people don't have to be accountable. Okay, and I just can't believe that. And one of the things is that we're asking for people to trust us with their tax money, and we're going to show it. If it goes to these other places where vouchers go, they don't have to show it. It goes, it's gone, nobody has to see it. Nobody has to see where it goes, nobody has to see where it's spent, nobody has to see what's left over. Okay, but we do. So that's one of the things that the public can trust us with, because they're going to see it. They're going to see where it goes, they're going to see how it's being used. Now, the interesting thing is that people may have opinions about whether we use it correctly or we don't. But when it goes to vouchers, they don't have any say. They have no say about whether it's right, it's wrong, or anything. Okay? So what we have to hope is that we get the message across that, yes, we need more money to operate. And Dr. Ann, I know you're going to be good at this, and yes, we have a vision, and we're going to implement that vision, and it's not going to be stagnant. But I think that we're a better bet than just having your money redirected and have them not know where it goes. So, Madam President, I just think that to the messaging, it's just so difficult to have people understand because it is very complicated.
And the community oversight, I think, really adds value that you've had in the past, because I think it struck out to your soul that you begin to see the disparity. I think one was transportation. You saw what it cost to transport kids from outside of TPS and what we got reimbursed. So you'll hear elected officials say, "Oh, we have reimbursed them, we give them money." No, we transport, it cost us $1.8 million, you give back $500,000. So there's still a deficit within that we owe. And at the same time, we are carrying hearts in TPS, and we've accepted kids with disabilities from all over. And many districts will just say, go TPS, they have the resources within it, because they realize the expense is twice as much more than it costs for the service. And at the end of the day, every child you take, you're already in a deficit based on that child's need, according to the dollars that come from the state. So even within that, in special education, it's a huge thing, meaning what does it take to service a child in autism or all the different spectrums or whatever else that is. These things don't necessarily come with the right dollars that it takes to support that kid, and we end up paying that and doing so just for the fact that we service everyone who crosses our doors.
Thank you. Ms. Gerken, you had additional?
Back to the millage that is in front of us. I think one of the things that was brought to our attention when we had to embark on the transformation plan, when we were reviewing what got us to the point that we needed to /68 million, one point was that in the last new money levy, that we actually under-asked, and we didn't ask for as much as we needed. And I'm concerned about the 6.9 giving us an oxygen tank, but not any stability. So I don't know if there have been any other opportunities to generate scenarios at 7 or 7.1, even though that's not quite tested yet. And I don't know, because I don't have the poll in front of me, how much they only tested it to 6.9, so I'm assuming that, it goes down, the support, but I think people look more at, it's TPS needs this, than they look at the number behind it when it comes to the, and I really believe we could have passed a larger levy last time. We under-asked, and I don't know if we're positioning ourselves to under-ask again.
And so that's kind of the unknowing, the only need. And so in that previous one, what we had done was making sure that we came to a millage that we were all comfortable with. And understand that decision was made with the board as well. And so when we sat down, we said, hey, here's what's going to get us, but this is some of the things that we're going to have to do. But at the end of the day, what we had to come to a decision was, what is it that the community can digest, because property taxes had just doubled coming out of COVID. So not only did their property tax double, what many could have said, well, I gave you more taxes just because mine doubled. At the same time, what more could they absorb on their own? And at the same time saying, well, there's some skin in the game at the district, we're going to have to scale back within ourselves as well. And that was the decision with Senate, but understand, meaning that when we had ESSER funds, we understood that we were going to scale back, and to what degree we needed to scale back based on the position that were brought as support services with ESSER dollars. So yes, what we've done is looked, and so the consultant ran the analysis from a 4.9 to a 6.9 just to be able to get a sense, in essence, of what community would digest. And so what they look at is somewhere around 3% difference to 4%. Each time you scale up to a different millage or whatever else that may be. So, and that's just them guessing without truly asking the exact question.
So I guess my point is that this came from a poll, not from an internal analysis of what we needed to stabilize ourselves.
Repeat that again.
I guess that's what I'm getting at, that this 6.9 came from a poll rather than an internal analysis of exactly what we might need to at least get a baseline stability here.
what Mr. Tekshoki had done at the time was he used the different millage amount to determine what would make sense in essence of what we could do. Yeah.
I'm talking about this time, I'm not trying to revisit this.
We're talking about this time.
So-
Mr. Tekshoki had it laid out from 4.9 all the way to a 7.9 or even 8 that he used and said, here's the different dollar amount and so forth, and here's what I recommend.
So was the 7.0, 7.1, 7.2 discussed in Finance Committee in terms of what it would generate?
No, what we were, that he brought forward the 6.9, which agreed upon, and at the same time, which is supported through the polling.
Yeah, Ms. Gergen, I think we zeroed in on the 6.9 because that's what was polled, to be honest with you, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say also, Mr. Vasquez. That's what was polled, so that's what we looked at.
Any other questions, Ms. Barnes?
Once again, I want to go back to messaging, because even sitting here, going back and forth, hearing all that, we don't know next week if gas is going to be $7. So right now, today, I can be like, you know what, go ahead, charge my taxes. I love TPS. But next week, I got to pay $7 for gas, $12 for eggs. I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I like TPS that much. I don't know. So we don't know these things, and it goes back to messaging once again. We are under attack. Public education itself and so many other things right now in this world is under attack. And I have to sit in history, right? Not the ones written by the oppressors, but the ones written by the thrivers. And for so long, people who look like me was not able to get public education. And what they did, they stayed strong and stayed to the mission. And eventually, they got equal access, I don't know why they wanted it now, but equal access to public education, including people in my family lineage. But we have to stick to the message and the mission. Things are going to change. We are not going to know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what this administration federally is going to do. We don't know what state representatives are going to do tomorrow, especially with everything going on with people going to the upper room or lower room, depends on who it is. But if we don't have a clear message and a mission, we're going to get distracted based on numbers, based on what resolution we're doing. It's going to keep changing. We're going to be here for longer than an hour trying to see what is numbers, what is resolution. If our mission is to provide equal access to high quality education, damn it, that's what it should be. And we should keep rolling with that.
Thank you. No, go ahead. Yeah.
I think one of the concerns for me was, as it relates to the polling, was the fact that the polling was done April 13th through the 18th. And so this was before the transformation plan was implemented. And so the opinions of people on the 13th through the 18th, I believe, is maybe different now. The concern that I had was when the question was asked about that, the professional said, well, people don't pay attention to media, so it's not going to change. Say that to the parent whose child has to change schools now because the school is closed. And so I really, if anything, I would have hoped that the polling was done after the fact as opposed to before the fact, because we really don't know what the mindset of our community is now based on the decisions that we've made due to the transformation plan.
Madam President,
Please go ahead.
look, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, and I think everything everybody said is right. We don't know what's going to happen. The poll that was taken, the timing wasn't good. It's the best information that we have. We're relying on experts outside of here. We have only control over some certain amount of things. We got to make a decision. We need to make a decision here, and the decision has to be embedded in the fact that we as a district are going to trust the public to help us educate their children, our students, in their neighborhoods, in the city school district, okay? And we make a commitment that we're going to do everything within the school district to make sure that it's the best effective education that we can provide. And we need to do that now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I love the conversation that we're having. So when I look at what we have before us, listen, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do either of them because I think in my heart of hearts, I feel like we've already experienced so much movement this year and really trauma for the community. And it's difficult, but I also know what's in front of us financially, and we have no choice but to do something right now. I think offering radical transparency is what we absolutely need. I think we need to explain where we've been, where we are, and where we're headed, and incorporate the community along that plan. It's difficult. Exactly what you're talking about, Ms. Barnes. I've had multiple conversations with folks in the community that it's tough. And so, while I don't think any of us want to the idea of going for a levy, it's difficult to make that decision because we know how our community is reacting to what we've had to go through this year, and our staff as well, right? But I think we have to do something. We have to at least try to move forward. So I look at, I would love more than anything if we were going to do a levy to go for an income tax. I think that would be great. It brings in more dollars. I feel a bit more comfortable with the dollars. But I also look at what we have done over the years, and the proof is in the pudding. The community supports property taxes in this district. And so I have to go, in my heart, I have to go with what the community has supported in the past. With that said, if there's any other discussion at this time, please, before we go to the resolution. Yeah.
Just based on some of the things you just said, the radical transparency, do you think it helps at all to have both options on the table for 2 more weeks in order to have the community kind of see that we're working hard to ferret our way through both options? I'm already hearing that there's probably not much of an appetite for income tax, so I get the desire to just like make a decision and bring that back in 2 weeks. But I didn't know if you thought having both on the table would benefit in that notion of radical transparency, because we still do, there is time to like hear from people and help see where, what people are thinking and that sort of thing. I mean, there's no formal way to poll again in the next 2 weeks. But I'm just curious about following up on the transparency piece.
So I wish that we had more time. I feel like we've run out of time at this point. I don't think that we have, in my opinion, the opportunity to really vet what the community feels about one way or the other. The polling that was done wasn't even ours. So I want to make that very clear. It was not ours. But we do appreciate where it was coming from, and we appreciate that their willingness to pay for that, right? Because we weren't going to do it, right? We don't have the funds. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole of vetting. So we do appreciate where it came from, but at the same time, again, as much as I would love to go down that pathway to engage our community, we do not have the time. And at the end of the day, for me, I feel like the pathway forward is most likely the property tax. But again, a radical transparency, you're right, Ms. Barnes, we have to have the messaging out there. It has to be on point, no discrepancies, no questions. It is, here it is. Here it is, black and white, this is what we're doing. So I do, I appreciate this conversation here tonight, because I think it's important for us to have. I appreciate what finance went through. I mean, 3-hour meeting in finance, we used to have 3 and 4 hour meetings many years ago, and, I appreciate the fact that Randall Parker took my spot, so. With that said, are there any other comments or questions around anything that Mr. Lockwood or Dr. Durant can answer before we move on to a resolution?
So I don't have a question more so than a comment. I appreciate, Ms. Gherkin, the option of dealing with both resolutions. I think that what we're doing right now is that radical transparency because we're talking out the options. I can't speak for my colleagues, I don't have an appetite to put both resolutions through, to be honest with you. I think we need to focus on what we're going to do and then move forward on the 28th with what we're going to do. That's just my own personal opinion. But I feel like this is the radical transparency because we're taking this time in an open meeting to discuss the options that's before us now.
I'm just wondering where there might be room for a conversation to consider higher millage.
I mean, this would be the moment right now, right? So we could bring this resolution forward. You could amend it if that is something that you're interested in. But I feel that the 6.9, just my opinion, I'm going to go based off of what the polling, what I think the appetite in the community is right now. I don't see any other districts going for anything above a 7 that they passed any time recently. Go ahead.
I can now say the last name, Mr. Lockwood. You did say something about, in your expert experience, that nothing really has gotten over the 7, right? In your...
So in the last cycle, what I can speak to in the May ballot, 1/4 of income tax passed, of new income tax levies passed, 1/4 in May. On the property tax side, it was a third of them passed, so a little bit better average on that. When you looked across the state on that, there were some really high figures coming out of like the Cuyahoga County area, and we're talking 10 mil, and those did not pass. The ones that had the better chances were obviously low, 7 or below.
Thank you.
So I guess the messaging then is going to be important, like you said, because we're going to be able to say, please pass this levy, but don't expect anything except for an extra tank of oxygen, because we won't be able to bring anything back with that amount. We will possibly still be closing schools with that amount. And so if you talk about radical transparency, we have to say, here's our life support, but don't expect growth or really anything but a little oxygen for a couple years, right?
No, I'm so sorry. No. As a parent of this district still, got one more to go. It depends on what you believe. You are one of the leaders of this ship. So if you're saying we're going to drown, then that's the message that's going to be put out there. Now, as a parent who believes what TPS have to offer, who believes the vision that Dr. Durant is trying to set forward for our district under these circumstances, is that shit is bad right now, but we're fighting. And if we got an oxygen mask on, we're fighting because we care. Now, we can just say, you know what, this is going to be too hard. We already got enough trouble as it is in the news and the media. We're not going to pass anything and continue to cut stuff and continue to close things without even trying. But because I feel as a board member, I care, I will do what I have to, even if it is putting an oxygen mask on us to get us to the next threshold. So it depends on what you're saying, and what you're believing as a school board member is what the community is going to receive from you. And yes, there are going to be other people who says, no property taxes and all that, but you are the messenger. So if you believe that, if you feel that way, people are going to feel and see that. And we need to make sure, we need to probably talk to you about our hopes and dreams for the future of TPS.
I support having a levy. I will want to make that very clear. I'm not sure that I will be able to say to people that it's going to, we can't say we're bringing back counselors, we're bringing back nurses, we're bringing back librarians, we're bringing back the gifted program. None of that will be a fact, and I'm not going to be able to say that. And I think people need to hear that after the cuts. I'm not going to be able to say, no, we're not going to close another school. They're going to want to hear that. I can say, absolutely, this is 100% necessary to keep us on life support until hopefully lots of other things fall into place. So absolutely, I can absolutely do that. And I've worked on levies for years.
But even when you're saying life support and oxygen mask, you're saying that we're critical or we're dead. I'm sorry, that's not the district I believe in. Is things hard right now? Yes, but you're saying we're on life support like we about to die.
Actually, our treasurer said we were on life support.
Okay,
So
but you reiterate once again.
That's right.
He works for Dr. Durant. Dr. Durant works for us.
No, he doesn't
I
work
mean,
for
sorry,
Dr.
he works for
Durant.
us. My bad. I'm still trying to figure this out. But he can say whatever he wants. It's up to us. They voted us in. If he can say we're on life support or oxygen masks or things are critical, it's up to us to change the messaging.
I think that, listen, I think both can be right? Because in one hand, we all wish we could increase and ask for more. But we also have to have reality of what our neighbors can afford. I always look at it as, I'm gonna go to my next door neighbor and ask them for dollars for the district, whether they have children in our district or not, whatever their income is or not. Like, I have to be able to go to my neighbor and explain to them why we need it, what we need, what we're doing moving forward. I would love to do more too. I don't know that more will pass. I mean, I'm gonna fight like the Dickens, just whatever we decide to do to get it to pass. I think we can do multiple things at the same time. We've shown that. We may not be able to bring back all the things that we just cut, which is really, really unfortunate. But I also think that we can get creative, because we've shown that in our district, that we are an innovative district. We are an innovative district. I firmly believe that. And I think, yes, career tech dollars, yes, enrollment. We need to focus on increasing enrollment. We are the best school choice, hands down. There's not anybody close. And we are in a really tough financial situation. The levy will not fix everything. We're going to have to do multiple things at the same time. So exactly what Mr. Vasquez was talking about, we're going to have to figure out revenue and expenses and adjust in both.
Madam President, I'm going to make a comment, but I know Dr. Durant's been waiting to make a comment. But if I can make mine first, Dr. Durant, before I forget it. Okay. It is that this is a necessary discussion to have. The other side of whatever amount we ask for, the other side of it is that it doesn't pass. We have nothing. Okay, and I think that's something to be considered. So collectively, the decision before us is collectively, what do we believe is achievable? And then I think without really knowing, I mean, we don't know. We don't know what's achievable. And I mean, afterwards, whatever we do, like I think everybody's saying, we just do the best that we can to let the voters know why it's important for us to have a levy and this extra finances. And I'm sure afterwards it's going to be, what if we did this? What if we did that? What if we did that? I don't know. We don't know. We don't know.
It's really easy to play Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah.
We always
thank you for-
wind up doing that.
No, I just to point out and focus. I think in essence, particularly responses in essence to the community. I think knowing that if enrollment scales down, so does staffing, and so we had to make the tough decision to scale within that, to continue to add back when you don't have the body to add back for. The treasurer would say that would be irresponsible. We put ourselves right back in deficit spending and such forth. So the district and the board made great decisions on understanding, hey, here's where our numbers are at and here's what we need to staff to. When we talk about, in essence, of excitement about the district, Ms. Gerken, you pointed out too well, was about our superpowers. speak on the superpowers, there is a growing excitement about Bowser Arts and Science Academy. I know Ms. Barwick said that a woman who kind of pointed you guys out ended up putting herself on social media saying, my kid finally got accepted to the Bowser Arts and Science Academy, and was excited about it. And so every high school has continued to adopt its own identity and use the best practices that we've seen with some of our magnet academies and others. But more importantly, we're producing college and career-ready graduates because we're being intentional about this work. This money is going to sustain that to the opportunities of making sure that all kids have opportunities, and at the same time, each school provides the same level of opportunity. So when you see Bowser scores next year, I can tell you, you're going to be caught off guard like, wow, and that becomes the next stepping stone of each academy embracing itself to each of these schools, because kids are there with a purpose, and at the same time it's tied to what we're providing within those schools. So that's kind of the base of what we're going to be marketing on. I'll be working with TAF and our consultant group and really talking about the opportunity that we're creating. That's what we created an identity for, and at the same time, everyone is looking to us. And that's the poster child of doing workforce development. And so when people say, how do you guys take the magnet schools and do within the comprehensive? That's this next step that we're taking. Bowser's going to be the first starters on deck. Scott, we're working those things out as well as some of the other schools. And at the end of the day, you begin to see difference in essence, because we're going to do a report card showing the graduation increases of graduation rate compared to career tech, and how every time we move the needle on career tech, we move the needle on grad rate. What you're going to see is the highest graduation rate in the history of TPS coming up to be something excited about to talk about. So again, these are the things that become the story. And so anyway, like I said, I'm already been on the grind to get these things going. So I have quite a bit already set up through this month, next month, and so we're moving. I already have a team together, already have leads to the team, already have money committed to support the efforts in the campaign. So we've been doing this well long ago. We were just looking for the green light to move forward on it.
Okay, anything else before we go ahead and?
Actually, my question was though.
I know, but I want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to have their say. Okay, well then, we're going to move on to 2.0, and that's, we have one resolution in front of us, and Pastor Parker, you're going to go ahead and read that one that's regarding the property tax.
The Board of Education of the Toledo City School District, Ohio, met on July 14, 2026, commencing at 5:30 p.m. in the Thurgood Marshall Boardroom of Toledo Public Schools Educational Campus, 1609 North. I've never read this in my life. Summit Street, Toledo, Ohio. Am I supposed to read that part?
No.
Yeah, because
We're really just passing that section, a resolution declaring.
so pursue.
Start with the resolution down here.
I got you. Okay.
Declaring and then move on
I apologize. Thank you. I just never seen it like this. Okay. A resolution declaring it necessary to levy an additional 6.9 mil tax levy for the purpose of current expense and requesting the Lucas County Auditor to make certain certifications. Pursuant to sections 5705.03 and 5705.21 of the revised code. Whereas this board finds that the amount of taxes that may be raised within the 10 mil limitation by levies on the current tax list will be insufficient to provide an adequate amount for the necessary requirements of the school district, and that is necessary to levy a tax in excess of such limitation for the purpose of current expenses for 5 years. And whereas in accordance with section 5705.3B of the revised code, in order to submit the question of a tax levy pursuant to section 5705.21 of the revised code, this board must certify to the Lucas County Auditor, a resolution stating items as required by section 5705.03B1 as applicable to the levy, and requesting that the county auditor make certain certifications as described in section 5705.03B2. And whereas in accordance with section 5705.03B2, upon receipt of a certified copy of a resolution of this board as described above, the county auditor is to certify certain matters as required by section 5075.03B2 as applicable to the levy. Now, therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of Toledo City School District, County of Lucas, State of Ohio, that section 1 definition as used in this resolution and in accordance with section 5705.03B1A of the revised code, meals refers to meals for each $1 of taxable value. Section 2, declaration of necessity of tax levy. This board finds, determines, and declares that the amount of taxes that may be raised within the 10 mil limitation by levies on the current tax list will be insufficient to provide an adequate amount for the necessary requirements of the school district. 2, it is necessary to require an additional 6.9 mil property tax, outside of the 10 mil limitation for the purpose of current expenses. And 3, it is intended to submit the question of that additional tax levy to the electors of the entire territory of the school district as an election to be held on November 3rd, 2026, as authorized by sections 5705.03 and 5705.21 of the revised code. And 4, the school district has territory only in the county of Lucas County. Yeah, I said that, Lucas. If approved, the tax will be levied upon the entire territory of the school district for 5 years, commencing in tax year 2026 for first collection in calendar year 2027. Section 3, request for certification. This board requests that the Lucas County Auditor to certify to it the certification set forth in sections 5705.03B2 as applicable to the proposed levy. Section 4, certification and delivery of resolution to the county auditor. The treasurer is authorized and directed to deliver or cause to be delivered a certified copy of this resolution to the Lucas County auditor. Section 5, compliance with open meeting requirements. This board finds and determines that all formal action of this board and of any of its committees concerning or related to the adoption of this resolution was taken, and that all deliberations of this board and of any of its committees that resulted in those formal actions were held in meetings open to the public in compliance with the law. Section 6, caption and headings. The caption and headings in this resolution are solely for convenience of reference and in no way define, limit, or describe the scope or intent of any section, subsections, paragraphs, subparagraphs, or clause thereof. Section 7, effective date. This resolution shall be in full force and effective from and immediately upon its adoption.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that code is going to be stuck in your head, right?
570.5.
Could I get a motion for that, please?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. At this point, is there any discussion on this particular resolution?
Madam President.
Yes.
I have a feeling that we're not going to be talking a whole lot about levies from Ms. Diaz going forward because of some of the restrictions once it goes on the ballot to how we can or can't talk about it here. So I'm going to indulge myself with talking about the first levy campaign that I worked on, which was probably in 1979 or 80. And I was a young secretary, and they put us all in a room and brought us what was then the precinct booklets. Ms. Jordan might be the only one who remembers this because we're talking about a long time ago. They brought us the precinct booklets. And it was our job to go through and highlight every fifth name, I think, every fifth name in order for them to build a poll from us hand highlighting, or we probably didn't even have highlighters then, I'm not going to lie, to go through and pick out names to go on a poll. Every levy since then, as an employee of 2 different bargaining units, I have worked very hard on levies. I know not only the logistics and the tactics that go into passing levies, but I'm quite familiar with the messaging as well. I think since I've been on this board, the year we were running, we had a levy that we all worked very hard and spoke positively about, and it was the first new money in a while. Dr. Durant made his promise that we wouldn't have to ask for new money again for 10 years, so that brought us to the last levy, which we're also ready to pass. I've seen this district in completely untenable situations where we were, cutting and slashing and hard to defend ourselves, and we continued to understand that TPS was the best choice, and I'm perfectly capable of continuing to do that. Just letting you know that that I've been doing this for a really long time, and I'd appreciate a little consideration for that, rather than a lecture about how I need to change my attitude. But in any case, I will be supporting this resolution.
I never said your attitude messaging.
Any other discussion?
No.
Okay. Please call the roll.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Gerken?
Yes.
Mr. Vasquez?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
And Mrs. Farwig?
Yes. Okay, well, that is the first one. We do have the second resolution. Folks can, if anyone would like to entertain a motion for that particular resolution, this is the time to do it. Hearing none, that is put to the side then. At this time, Dr. Durant, anything else that you'd like to say before we head to adjournment?
No, I appreciate the support, and we got a parade coming this weekend, so we'll see some of you as well as a few others. But again, thank you for your support and keep us proud.
Thank you. Anything by the board before I'll entertain a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, Treasurer, please call the roll.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mrs. Gerken?
Yes.
Mr. Vasquez?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
And Mrs. Farwig?
Yes, thank you.